Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 21st of October 2021. These are the stories that we will be talking about during the course of the show. We'll begin with a meeting that was held between the NATO senior civil representative and a former Italian ambassador to Pakistan as well, Stefano Pontecorvo, who met with the chief of the army staff. And of course, they talked about Afghanistan. When it comes to Afghanistan, there are a lot of developments that are happening as we speak. Our foreign minister, Shah is also in Kabul with their high-level delegation. He's met with the prime minister there. He's also going to meet with his counterpart in Afghanistan. Then, of course, coming back to the chief of the army staff, when he met with Stefan Pontecorvo, he said that there was a need for global convergence on the Afghan issue to avoid the humanitarian issue that is, of course, affecting Afghanistan as we speak. Also, there has been a joint statement of the participants of the Moscow format consultations on Afghanistan that happened yesterday, and 9 to 10 different important points were discussed and taken out in that statement. We'll be talking about that as well. And from the Pakistani side, Ambassador Mohammad Sadiq was also present there, who also reiterated Pakistan's stance as far as Afghanistan is concerned. This is going to be our first segment of the day. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the war against terrorism that Pakistan has been waging. It has already fought two very important wars against terrorism, and both the wars have been successful. There was a lull as far as the terrorist activities were concerned, but of late we are seeing a lot of increase as far as these activities are concerned, and they are located in Balochistan or in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And of course, there has been a soldier who's been martyred in Kech in Balochistan. There have been 2 Frontier Corps soldiers and as many policemen who embraced martyrdom when an IED of course, a device was in their way, and the blast occurred, and of course they were martyred. This happened in the Mamund area of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's Bajo district. We'll be talking about the incidents that have been happening in Pakistan, and of course located in these two specific areas, that is Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, in our second story. Our third story of the day, ladies and gentlemen, concerns some Twitter trends that have been coming out of late, and this concerns a DC animated film that is known as Injustice. Now, what is very interesting about this film is that not only does it come from Hollywood, but also in this film a narrator has voiced the word Kashmir and has called it disputed. This is something that we've been talking about since a long time. Pakistan has been saying that the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is a disputed region, and this has irked a lot of Indian users on social media, and there have been a lot of responses on that. That is going to be our third story. And our final story of the day is going to be a statement that has come during an interview of British Pakistani actor Riz Ahmed, otherwise known as Rizwan Ahmed, and he has talked about the misrepresentation or the very minimal representation of the Muslim community as far as the films are concerned, and also misrepresentation of Muslims. He's talked about certain films in the past that have represented the Muslims in a wrong manner. He has talked about a very minuscule number of Muslim artists who are allowed to come forward as far as their performances in films in Hollywood is concerned. This is going to be our last segment. Let's begin with our very first story, and that concerns Afghanistan. That concerns the meeting between the chief of the army staff and the NATO senior civil representative and the former Italian ambassador to Pakistan, Stefano Pontecorvo. This also concerns a lot of other developments that are happening in Afghanistan. We've been joined by Syed Akhtar Ali Shah Sahab. He's an analyst. Shah Sahab, thank you very much to have joined us on the newsroom for this very segment. Let's begin with the meeting between the chief of the army staff and Mr. Pontecorvo. How do you see this meeting? Because of course he's representing the civilian part of the NATO, and our chief of the army staff represents our armed forces. When our chief of the army staff says that there needs to be a global convergence on the Afghan issue, why does he have to reiterate that? Why do other leaders from Pakistan have to reiterate that? Does the world not understand that there needs to be a global convergence as far as Afghanistan is concerned?
I think that global convergence is emerging. The recent conference hosted by Moscow is an indicator towards that. And even now, there is another conference on 27th. And even the German Chancellor and the European Union and the United Nations, they have also established a trust. Now the world is realizing that Afghanistan is now confronted with a humanitarian crisis. And I would quote the Chancellor of Germany, who said that they would not allow to descend Afghanistan into chaos. Similarly, the Russian foreign minister, he has also stated that the Taliban have tried to protect the governance by preventing violence, but unfortunately, the recent acts of terror by IS in two cities of Afghanistan, it has
and targeting a mosque, and targeting a mosque, Shah Sahab. I mean, this is the least of places that needs to be targeted. And then, of course, the number of people that have been killed in these attacks. And IS, of course, is a factor that Russia has had a lot of concerns about as well in the past, and it has also reiterated those concerns to the Afghan leadership. Do you feel that this conference that has been held, and of course there was a joint statement as well, I have the 9 different points that were discussed in that were taken out in this statement, but do you feel that Afghanistan will be able to control this incursion by the IS or Daesh?
You see, for this, Afghanistan has to open up a bit. If you look at the joint statements of the recent conference held in Moscow, it also focuses and emphasizes that besides the humanitarian aspect, they also emphasize on the inclusiveness of the government in Afghanistan and protection of the human rights, girls' education, women rights, and minority. So Afghanistan, the government in Afghanistan have to be in sync as far as the aspiration and sentiments of the...
Shah Sahab, these 9 points that have been taken out in the joint statement of the 10 countries that participated in this conference in Moscow, this was of course the third in this series of conferences. Do you feel all the points that you have also reiterated that are also present in this joint statement are also preconditions for the acceptance of the new government in Kabul?
Yes, of course, because one of the major problems now faced by the Afghanistan is their legitimacy. Because of that, their banking system, their assets, that is $10 billion in the central bank, have been frozen. And because of that, the whole banking system, their international trade, is at a standstill. And according to the reports, around 2,500 traders from Afghanistan, they have shifted to Turkey. And if they have taken at $10,000 minimum off, what does it mean? So their international trade is now at a standstill. So for that, they have to meet certain minimum international standards in order to get the legitimacy.
And you also know that, sir, that A, the United States did not participate in this meeting. B, Washington has also frozen the Taliban access to Afghan central bank reserves. Now, this also is a huge loss for Afghanistan because the IMF has stopped its loans, the World Bank as well, and the Afghan central bank reserves are also frozen by the United States. So Afghanistan currently is left in a quandary. Shouldn't it move forward at a very rapid pace to accept these preconditions that have been put forward in the joint communique?
You see, recently a delegation of the Chamber of Commerce of Afghanistan visited Peshawar. And CRC, this is Center for the Strategic and Security headed by Imtiaz Gul, also hosted a dinner. I was a part of that.
All right.
And I heard the chamber, their chairman, and they had their votes. Uh, and they were very apprehensive. Rather, they used that still Afghanistan is in a chaos unless they meet certain international standards, their financial system would not operate. And the traders would be then have no other option but to shift to other countries. Already they have shifted the Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and other countries. They are offering better incentives. So in such a situation, we have also an opportunity to offer better incentives to the Afghan traders in Pakistan to attract investment here. So the sooner, one of the most important point is that there are two school of thoughts within the Taliban in itself. One was their political office headed by Mullah Biradar, who had been acting outside on the political side, holding parleys. He knows the niceties of the diplomacy, and the others who were inside of Afghanistan. So they have a bit a myopic, or I would say a narrow approach towards international relations. And if they want to act in a modern sense of the term of the state, a modern state, so then they have to open up.
They have to strengthen their relationship with other countries, or else in the long term it will be very detrimental. I mean, it will go in a very negative sense as far as Afghanistan is concerned, Shah Sahab, because if Afghanistan does not move forward, because if I remember well, the foreign minister of Afghanistan some time back, Mr. Muttaqi, had said that Afghanistan wants good relations with the world. But on the one hand, we hear such statements. On the other hand, as you said, there is a narrow point of view as far as developing their international relations is concerned. So why this dichotomy?
You see, recently, there are certain things which are very important for optics as well. Recently, the Haqqanis, they publicly acknowledged the services of the suicide bombers, and they were declared as heroes, and their families were compensated. So such kind of messages do not go well in the international community. So far, we live in an international world. We are no man is an island, as being said by the John Donne. We are part of the whole. So realizing the sensitivities of the international world, we have to do certain things for the optics. So the inside Afghanistan, the political leadership of the Taliban now have to realize whether they want to make Afghanistan a modern state, a functioning state, or they want to live in a primitive era, in a primitive tribal society.
But will it take the Afghan government or the Afghan leadership a long time to make their minds, make up their minds as to what they want to do with the country? Or will this take their sweet time? I mean, this is what I don't understand, is that now that the Afghan Taliban have taken over, why is there such a slow pace in moving forward?
As I told you that there are 2-3 groups inside the
Yes, of course, and they have different minds. But no, what I'm trying to understand is why can't these
issues
groups get together, sir?
All between themselves. Then they would go to the world giving some kind of concessions as far as their point of view is concerned. One is on the education, the other is on the human rights. And
on women as well.
Yes, of course. You look at the Kimnik in the Moscow, it also focuses on children's education, on the girls' education specifically. There's still a question mark as far as girls' education is concerned. The girls' schools
well,
have
they did
not
open
opened
up some of the institutions in some areas of Afghanistan for the girls of late. This was also, of course, we read about that very, very recently. But apart from that, when we think of inclusiveness, that is something that Pakistan has also been reiterating as far as Afghanistan is concerned. It was also part of the communique that was taken out at the meeting in Moscow. That was a joint statement. Do you feel, sir, in all candidness, that the Afghan current government or leadership can move forward towards an inclusive form of government?
I think they can because the Afghan, a part of them, they had been living in Qatar, in Dubai, and they have been traveling, they have been interacting with the international leadership, with diplomats, and they understand the dynamics of international relations and how state operates in this international community. So sooner or later, they will meet the requirements of the international community as far as legitimacy is concerned. Once the international community recognize the government, then the doors will open for further progress and development.
All right, but sir, you know, there are the preconditions that are there before the international bodies accept the current Afghan government, and that is where there is a certain pause as far as the Afghan leadership is concerned as to whether they should move forward quickly or not. They are I mean, this is what I understand, is that they are in this whole process of thinking on how to move forward. But wouldn't that be too late if this whole process takes a long time, especially with the economic crisis that Afghanistan is plagued with currently?
You see, if they don't want to move quickly and they don't come up with their package, so they are about to face a grave humanitarian crisis. According to the reports, 95% of the Afghan population, the adult population, they eat less in order to feed their children. If the same situation persists, there are apprehensions that 1 million Afghan children below the age of 5 will die of malnutrition. And there will also be then large-scale migrations from Afghanistan. Still, a large number of Afghans are living in open, and now the winter is setting in. It will further compound the miseries.
That is so true, Shah Sahab. At the same time, looking at the attacks that the IS is involving itself in as far as Afghanistan is concerned, plus the humanitarian crisis, plus the fact that the international countries and the bodies are still not recognizing the current Afghan government. I would like to understand one aspect of all of that, and that is the aid. Now, we know that the EU, Brussels, has sanctioned aid for Afghanistan. We know that the United States has also sanctioned some aid for Afghanistan. Why isn't that aid reaching Afghanistan, sir?
You see, now, quite recently, today, our last day, UN has formed a trust fund, and the Germany has promised 50 million euro, and similarly, other countries. And you see, the cost activity is about 67 million dollars. So the world has realized to face and to aid Afghanistan as far as human miseries are concerned. But it will only
I know that the UN has also sanctioned the aid, the EU has sanctioned and US has sanctioned, but why isn't it coming to the people? Why isn't it reaching the common man in Afghanistan? That is what I'm trying to understand, sir.
No, they have now committed. Now it will be funneled through the NGOs and UNICEF and other international organizations. But for the long run, the basis, to my mind, that is Doha Agreement, where one of the most important provision of that agreement was the intra-Afghan dialogue, and through which there had to be an inclusive government. It is this is that part of the agreement on which the United States and other countries are now emphasizing. So the Taliban have to cater for this promise which they had made in that agreement. in order to get legitimacy.
All right, sir. Sir, let's come to Pakistan and the role that Pakistan has played as far as Afghanistan is concerned. We know that Pakistan has had a very pertinent role to play to bring the two sides together, the Afghan government at that time, the previous Afghan government, and the Afghan Taliban who are now in power. Then also Pakistan has been telling the world about the crisis that Afghanistan is currently plagued with, the economic and the humanitarian crisis. Our Prime Minister also very recently urged the world to unfreeze the Afghan assets. And now our Foreign Minister, as we speak, is in Kabul with a high-level delegation. He's met with the Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister of Afghanistan, who's Mullah Hassan Akhund, and he's also going to meet the Foreign Minister, his counterpart in Afghanistan. How important is the role of Pakistan as far as Afghan peace, Afghan humanitarian aid is concerned? And B, does Afghanistan realize the importance that Pakistan has as far as it is concerned?
I think in the region as well as in the world, no other country can better understand Afghanistan than Pakistan. And both countries are also interdependent as far as international trade is concerned. So Pakistan has a major stake as far as Afghanistan is concerned, because the international system, financial system is not operating. It is also adversely affecting Pakistan. Had there been a proper financial system, Pakistan would have benefited because of that trade. And it would have also provided connectivity to the Central Asia. So with a friendly government in Afghanistan and peace in Afghanistan, the would be then a passage to Central Asia as well, I would say, to Eurasia. And the vision and the dream of connectivity through One Belt, One Road initiative are the mutual interdependence as far as the connectivity is concerned. All depends on peace in Afghanistan and its recognition. Both Pakistan also realizes this and Afghanistan also realizes this. And it is why so far Pakistan has also not recognized. Pakistan is also sailing with the international community. So Pakistan is also striving hard to convince the government in Afghanistan to meet certain minimum international standards in order to get recognition. So Pakistan has a major role to play as far as this is concerned.
Thank you very much, Syed Akhtar Shah Sahab, analyst, joining us and talking to us about Afghanistan, Pakistan's role in Afghanistan, the current crisis that Afghanistan is plagued with, and of course the joint statement that has come out of the meeting of the 10 important countries that was hosted by Moscow. And of course this joint statement had 9 important points that was released yesterday at the end of this important meeting, and there's going to be another meeting very soon as well. But what is very important in this whole current situation is that the aid reaches Afghanistan in the form of food items, in the form of other forms of aid, so that the people, as Shah Sahab also said, 95% of the households in Afghanistan are eating less than they should, just so that their children can get enough to eat. It is a crisis, and it is going to be even more severe if aid does not reach at the right time. Let's go to our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, that concerns Pakistan's war against terrorism. We have waged 2 very important wars. We have won them. We had a lull as far as these activities is concerned, but since the last few months, there is an increase in this activity, especially concentrated in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. More in the following report.
For the last 16 years, Pakistan has been fighting the world's most notorious terrorist groups after joining global war on terror and international community's call. Despite Islamabad's colossal contribution in global counterterrorism activities, international community never acknowledged its indispensable efforts. Pakistan's counterterrorism efforts were disproportionately measured from Afghan prism without paying heed to its deteriorating internal security calculus. It was the result of countless sacrifices and relentless counterterrorism efforts that Pakistan substantially eradicated the scourge of terrorism from its soil. After the chaotic US withdrawal from Afghanistan and the resultant power vacuum, terrorist threat reared its head again with disastrous spillover effects in Pakistan. Over the past few months, cross-border terrorist attacks from ungoverned spaces in Afghanistan have escalated, prompting swift response from Pakistan. An intelligence-based operation was conducted upon information about the presence of IS members in the Shah area on the outskirts of Peshawar, resulting in killing of 3 IS militants. In a separate incident, 2 Frontier Corps soldiers and 2 policemen embraced martyrdom when their convoy was targeted with an improvised explosive device blast in Mahmud area of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's Bajawar district. Earlier this month, as many as 4 soldiers of FC and Levy sub-inspector embraced martyrdom while thwarting terrorist-targeted attack on security forces' vehicle in Spinwam area of North Waziristan. Thus, international community must acknowledge that Pakistan itself is a victim of terrorism, as the country has lost 83,000 civilians and soldiers in the fight against terrorism, which also took toll upon the country's economic and social development. Moreover, it's high time to hold India accountable for hatching conspiracies to foment insurgency in Pakistan by mobilizing its proxy arms IS, TTP and Balochistan Liberation Army.
Now, to talk more about this, of course, this whole incident, the spate of incidents that are happening in Balochistan, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa of late, since the last few months, we have 2 guests. One is online and one is in the studio. Let's begin with our guest who's joined us online, Brigadier Tipu Sultan Saab. Thank you very much to have joined us. Sir, when we see these incidents, and as you've heard in the report as well, there is a spate of incidents in the last few months that are concentrated in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Why this time, and what is the basic inclination and reasoning behind these incidents in your point of view? All right, Brigadier Tipu Sultan Saab, can you hear us?
Yeah, now I can hear you. I just heard only half portion of your question.
All right, so I'll just reiterate the question. I'll repeat the question again. I was just saying, in these incidents that we are seeing in the last few months, and there's a continuity of incidents that happens in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, what do you feel is the reasoning, the whole ideology behind these attacks, and why are they happening now since the last few months?
Well, what has happened in our neighborhood is that the Americans have withdrawn after being unsuccessful in Afghanistan, and so did the RAW had to fold up and go, and so was the case in case of CIA and all that, and it was left to the Taliban. When the people were being evacuated by the Americans from the Kabul airport, there was a blast over there, and the Americans resorted to a drone attack, and in both Ukraine they said that they targeted the IS, and the IS was responsible for the explosions there, and then there were explosions in mosques across Afghanistan. There were a lot of casualties.
Is that a repercussion of that? Is that a reaction to that, what is happening in Pakistan? Are they extending IS or other elements? Because, of course, as we know, 3 IS men have been killed near Peshawar. That is, the counter-terrorism department has declared that in a statement. Do you feel that the sleeper cells maybe, or the IS has infiltrated to some extent in Pakistan, or TTP as well, that has been behind some of the incidents in Pakistan? Do you feel there's a convergence of such elements to destabilize Pakistan?
Yeah, I'm coming to that. Why I went through the preamble was that since the apparent known forces of the West were defeated in Afghanistan, the unknown forces and the hidden forces under the carpet operated by various intelligence agencies, RAW and CIA and NTS and maybe Mossad, they had articles over there, and they were coercing Pakistan and fanning terrorism across Pakistan. Remember when Pakistan wanted to fence the border with Afghanistan, they were the ones who opposed that.
UN cried.
And there was no godly reason, no earthly reason to oppose that. The only thing was that they were not unable to infiltrate their cronies here and their agents into Pakistan. Now they had deployed to a great extent across Nimroz, across Praktika, Nuristan, Kunard and lower provinces, Kandahar, and beyond that up to Kundi area and with the Iranian border. Across Balochistan, it's a vast territory, sparsely populated. People can move about 47% of land mass Pakistan, and then there were agencies like for South Waziristan, North Waziristan, Khyber Agency, Orakzai, and thwart. There are other agencies across Chitral and all that. They were able to infiltrate the people. Since they have gone, they still hold a certain number of influence through what they've made the agents over the years, two decades and all that.
All right, so it is that influence that is resulting in what is happening right now in Bajor or in Kech in Balochistan, and the different incidents that has happened before as well. Thank you very much, Brigadier Tipu Sultan Saab, to have joined us and to have talked to us about, of course, this latest spate of incidents. We've been joined by Nasir Jafri Saab, who's an analyst in the studio as well. Nasir Jafri Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Do you agree or partially agree with what Tipu Sultan Saab had to say?
Well, this was, I mean, the logical thing that we were all expecting that it will happen with the developments in Afghanistan. We were actually expecting kind of a spillover in Pakistan also, and the same thing is happening. I mean, if you see the influence of the intelligence agencies like RAW and Mossad and NDS, and not only in Afghanistan but also in other parts of this region, as well as their links with different militant groups that were actually creating problems for Pakistan and using Afghanistan's soil to destabilize Pakistan. So the developments that took place in Afghanistan must have been come as a disappointment to them, and we were certainly expecting a reaction, and the reaction is there, and I believe that there may be some more isolated incidents. But as Prime Minister Imran Khan said, that they are trying to actually negotiate with the groups which are willing to lay down their arms and willing to talk to the government. They will certainly be welcome to come and talk to the government, and action will be taken against those who are actually unwilling to surrender. So that is one important thing, and moreover we have assurances from Taliban, Afghan Taliban also, that they will not let their soil to be used by.
Nevertheless, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Bajor agency, there have been incidents.
Yes, but the problem is that they are not very stable at the moment. I mean, they are trying to I mean, put the things in their own house in order. You know, there are certain problems, serious problems they are facing, like you were just mentioning about the Afghan central bank's reserves which have been frozen. That is one of the major problems, and the livelihood for Afghans, I mean, the hunger and the poverty. They are not getting any aid, they are not getting any assistance. So they will have to tackle these things also simultaneously with tackling the elements like Daesh and TTP. We should not forget that the Daesh is not the only problem. There are other criminal groups also which are operating in Afghanistan, which on such occasions take advantage and work in cahoots with the Daesh and other outlawed outfits and organizations, and try to create problems. So that is these are some of the problems, I mean, which Afghanistan is facing, and certainly the spillover will be seen in Pakistan also, but it's quite satisfying that this the spillover is not so severe as we were expecting.
All right.
Because as far as TTP is concerned, they are not actually getting enough support from the agencies, intelligence agencies, which are inimical to Pakistan, because they have actually lost all influence in Afghanistan. They had to actually leave Afghanistan in a very humiliating way.
So that we know, and that is why they have been perpetrating different kinds of stories.
So that
as
is
well.
that's kind of a reaction from them also. You know what, it's just will be little out of context here, but what we saw in the case of the cancellation of New Zealand's cricket team trip to Pakistan,
followed by the British.
Yes, followed by the British, was also kind of a backlash, was also kind of a reaction that those forces who were actually using Afghan soil to destabilize Pakistan had to face after Taliban took over. Because United States, or even for that matter India, they were not expecting that they will prove to be so fragile, I mean to say, these Afghan forces, and they will not be able to stand for even for few days. Despite the fact that billions of dollars were spent on their training and everything. So I mean, this was the kind of the situation that they were not expecting. I still remember a statement by Indian National Security Advisor who said that the Afghan army is now quite capable enough to deal any eventuality.
Don't you remember the statement by Joe Biden just a few days before?
Yes. So this is what I am saying, and contrary to that, our army chief had very clearly said just a few years ago that the armies cannot be raised overnight. I mean, the way the army was being raised there, I mean, it was it surprised everyone. That they failed to withstand the pressure.
Exactly, despite all the assurances that the then Afghan government had given to the United States.
So that was the reason actually. That is why I mean, that is why whatever is happening in tribal areas, what is happening in Balochistan, we can safely say that it's kind of a reaction.
All right.
That we are facing.
I mean, there's one which is the spillover that we've talked about, that is not as extreme as was expected, but there are also the other aspect of it, that is the sleeper cells of these organizations that have been put to that have been dormant, let's put it that way, since the last couple of years, and then have now been activated of late. Do you feel that we might see more of such incidents?
You know, Umar, the main problem that our leadership has been highlighting for quite some time is the fifth generation warfare, hybrid warfare. So this is basically part of that hybrid warfare. I mean, deception is something that matters a lot in such situation, and this is what the forces which are actually inimical to Pakistan are trying to use. There might be some sleeper cells, but to say that the Taliban are actually, TTP is now regrouping and the sleeper cells are again, they are awake, they are now they have got themselves activated. This kind of a propaganda that is being, in my personal opinion, you may not agree with me, but it is being unleashed just to unnerve and confuse our own people, just to create kind of a confusion and kind of a scare and security threat among our people. You know, it's very easy to divert.
Exactly. It is so easy to divert attention. But what Pakistan is doing, what our forces are doing, is moving together in the right direction, not only to thwart the attempts from across the border, but also to thwart such attempts that are coming from inside of Pakistan. Thank you very much, Nasir. Jafri sahab, we're a bit short of time, or else we'd have continued our discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, this war against terror is something that we've been fighting since more than a decade, and of course our armed forces understand very well the tactics that the enemy is employing, and we will see less and less of such incidents inshallah in the future as well. Let's come to very quickly to our last two stories. The first is about a new DC film, that DC Comics film that is called Injustice, which will only not have a theatrical release, but will come on Blu-ray or on DVDs. But what is peculiar about this, that in a clip of this animated film Injustice that features Superman and Wonder Woman as well, a narrator's voice appeared to refer to Kashmir as disputed. Now this is something of a change as far as the attitude towards Kashmir from Hollywood is concerned, and that of course makes us realize that maybe the world is finally understanding what is happening in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and translating it into their films. Now, and let's come now to the very last segment, that is an interview that Riz Ahmed, or otherwise known as Rizwan Ahmed, who is a very famous British Pakistani actor. He's done Sound of Metal. He was nominated for an Oscar as well. He talked very recently to a media outlet, and there he said that not only are the Muslim roles that are given in different films and TV series misrepresentation of the Muslim community across the world, but even the percentage of Muslims that are taking part in these different films and TV series are very minimal. So he said there needs to be more of an inclusion of the Muslim community and a proper representation of that community. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe, follow the SOPs, get yourselves vaccinated. Allah Hafiz.